You ever try explaining Bitcoin to someone over 60? And within like 15 seconds they hit you with, so it's fake money, or what happens if the internet shuts down? Or my favorite, why would I buy something that isn't real? Look, a few weeks ago I sat down with my 70-year-old dad to explain Bitcoin. And honestly, I thought it was gonna be impossible. Because here's the thing, most people in crypto explain Bitcoin terribly. They start talking about blockchains, decentralization, cryptographic hashing, peer-to-peer networks, and normal people mentally check out immediately. But when I explained it to my dad in a way that actually connected to his life, something clicked. And what surprised me most wasn't that he understood Bitcoin. It's that once he understood money, Bitcoin suddenly made sense. I want to show you exactly how I explained Bitcoin to someone who grew up before the internet even existed, and why this conversation completely changed the way he looked at money. Section 1, the question that changed everything. So we're sitting at the kitchen table. And my dad asks me, why does Bitcoin even exist? Now, most people answer this question horribly. They say things like, oh, it's decentralized digital currency. That means nothing to the average person. So instead, I asked him a question. I said, Dad, if you saved $100,000 in cash for 20 years, would that money still buy the same amount of stuff today? And immediately he goes, of course not. Boom. That's where Bitcoin starts making sense. Because here's what most people don't realize, the dollar itself is constantly losing value. According to U.S. inflation data, the purchasing power of the dollar has dropped massively over time. Something that cost $1 in the 1970s can cost over $7 today depending on the category. And look, people feel this. Groceries feel more expensive. Rent feels insane. Cars cost more. Everything costs more. But salaries, not exactly keeping up. So I told him Bitcoin was created after the 2008 financial crisis because a lot of people stopped trusting governments and banks to protect the value of money. And this is where it gets really interesting. Bitcoin has a hard limit. Only 21 million will ever exist. No government meeting. No money printer. No random decision. That's it. And suddenly my dad says, so it's like digital gold, exactly. That people understand. Section 2, why people struggle to understand Bitcoin. Now you might be thinking, okay Tito, but Bitcoin still feels fake, and honestly, that's normal. Because humans trust physical things. Gold feels real because you can hold it. Cash feels real because you can touch it. But here's the weird part, most money today is already digital. When your paycheck hits your bank account, that's numbers on a screen. When you use Apple Pay, numbers on a screen. When banks move billions of dollars, nobody's wheeling around giant bags of cash. It's databases. So the real question isn't, is digital money real? The real question is, who controls the digital money? And this is where Bitcoin becomes different. Traditional banking systems are centralized. Meaning, banks control transactions, governments can print more money, accounts can be frozen, transfers can be delayed. Bitcoin operates on a decentralized network. No single company controls it. No CEO. No country. And when I explained this to my dad, I used the simplest analogy possible. I said, imagine if nobody owned email, that's basically Bitcoin. Nobody owns the internet itself. But people use it every day. Bitcoin works similarly. Section 3, the math that blew his mind. Now here's the moment that really got him paying attention. I pulled out my phone and showed him this. If someone bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2015, it would have grown dramatically over the following decade despite massive volatility. And immediately he says, well then why isn't everybody buying it? And honestly, that's the perfect question. Because humans are emotional investors. People say they want high returns, but they also want zero fear. And those two things usually don't go together. Bitcoin crashes scare people. A lot. In some years, Bitcoin dropped more than 70%. Most people cannot psychologically handle that. Imagine putting in $10,000 and suddenly seeing $3,000. Most people panic sell. This is why investing is more psychology than math. Look, everyone thinks they'll buy the dip until the dip actually happens. Section 4, what most people get wrong. Here's what most people don't realize. Bitcoin isn't really competing with the dollar day to day. It's competing with inflation, long-term money storage, financial distrust, and traditional systems people no longer fully believe in. That's a completely different conversation. And I explained this to my dad using housing. I said, imagine there were only 21 million houses in the entire world. What would happen over time as more people wanted them? Price goes up. Scarcity matters. Now obviously Bitcoin and housing are different. But the core idea is supply and demand. Limited supply plus growing interest equals upward pressure over time. And here's the crazy part, a lot of younger people trust Bitcoin more than banks. Not because Bitcoin is perfect, but because they watched inflation rise, housing become unaffordable, wages stagnate, and traditional financial advice stop working. The old system doesn't feel reliable anymore. Section 5, the real reason Bitcoin confuses people. Here's the thing, Bitcoin forces people to rethink money itself. And that's uncomfortable. Because most people never actually learned how money works. Schools teach you how to memorize facts, how to pass tests, maybe how to write essays, but almost nobody teaches inflation, asset ownership, monetary systems, investing psychology, wealth preservation. So when people first hear about Bitcoin, their brain immediately compares it to cash. But Bitcoin behaves more like an asset. Closer to gold. Closer to digital property. And once my dad understood that distinction, everything changed. Section 6, the fear everyone has now. My dad asked the question every beginner asks, what if Bitcoin goes to zero? And honestly, that's possible. Any investment has risk. But here's how I explained it. The internet could fail. Governments could ban things. Technology could change. Risks are real. But Bitcoin has survived. Government attacks, exchange collapses, media panic, massive crashes, thousands of Bitcoin is dead headlines, and yet it keeps coming back. That resilience matters. Especially for something that's only existed since 2009. Section 7, this is where it gets really interesting. So then my dad says, okay, but why are big companies buying it now? Exactly. This is where things changed. Because years ago, Bitcoin was mostly retail investors and internet nerds. Now, major institutions entered the space. Large investment firms launched Bitcoin-related products, public companies added Bitcoin to balance sheets, and financial institutions began offering crypto exposure. And whether people like it or not, institutional money changes perception. Suddenly Bitcoin isn't just internet gambling, now it becomes a possible financial asset class. That shift is massive. Section 8, the biggest lesson, but honestly, the biggest thing I wanted my dad to understand wasn't buy Bitcoin. It was this: the world is changing faster than most people realize. AI is changing work. Digital assets are changing ownership. Online businesses are replacing traditional careers. And money itself is evolving. The people who adapt early usually benefit the most. Not because they're smarter, but because they're willing to learn before everyone else. And look, I'm not saying put your life savings into crypto. Please don't do that. What I am saying is, ignoring financial change completely can also be risky. Because here's what most people do: they reject new things emotionally before understanding them logically. That's dangerous. Section 9, what I told him to actually do. So after all this, my dad asks, okay, what should a normal person actually do? Great question. Here's exactly what I told him. Step 1, learn before investing. Do not buy things you don't understand. Seriously. Spend *5 hours learning, *10 hours researching, understand wallets, understand volatility, understand risk. Knowledge reduces fear. Step 2, start small if you're curious. Start with an amount you can emotionally handle losing. Maybe $20*50, $100, not because you expect instant riches, but because small exposure creates learning. Step 3. Think long-term. Most people treat crypto like gambling. That's why they lose money emotionally. Zoom out. The people who historically benefited most from volatile assets usually had patience. Step 4. Don't follow hype. This is huge. Most people enter crypto because TikTok said so, Twitter said so, their friend got rich. Terrible strategy. Make decisions based on understanding, not excitement. Section 10. The psychology of money. And honestly, this conversation wasn't really about Bitcoin. It was about fear. Because money is emotional. People fear looking stupid, losing money, missing opportunities, change itself, and sometimes we reject ideas not because they're wrong, but because they challenge our identity. That's why financial growth often starts psychologically before it starts financially. Conclusion. At the end of the conversation, my dad looked at me and said, "I still don't fully trust it, but now I finally understand why people care about it. And honestly, that's enough." You don't need blind belief. You need informed understanding. Because whether Bitcoin succeeds long-term or not, the bigger lesson matters. The financial world is evolving. And the people who stay curious usually do better than the people who dismiss everything new automatically. So if you've been confused by Bitcoin, don't feel bad. Most people explain it terribly. But once you understand inflation, scarcity psychology, and how money actually works, Bitcoin starts making a lot more sense. If this video helped you understand crypto in a simpler way, hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What was the moment Bitcoin finally clicked for you? Or what still doesn't make sense yet? Because honestly, those are usually the best conversations.